The planet Theraxis was not a place one could easily forget. Towering crystalline structures glimmered in the violet sun, reflecting fractured rainbows across the barren plains. Its native inhabitants, the Cerati, had long since mastered the delicate balance of technology and nature, their society a seamless blend of bioengineered cities and sprawling forests that glowed at night with phosphorescent flora. Among them, Lyra Drath was a figure of renown, tactical genius, diplomatic prodigy, and the youngest member ever to be appointed to the Cerati High Council. She expected nothing from the human emissaries arriving that day, nothing except bureaucracy, chaos, and an inevitable clash of egos. Yet when the starship Intrepid Horizon emerged from the ion mist surrounding the planet, carrying the lone human representative, everything changed. Lyra watched the vessel's descent from the observation tower of the capital city. She expected a delegation, suits, protocols, the faint whiff of overconfidence humans often carried. Instead, only one figure emerged, a tall, wiry human with eyes that seemed far older than his years, and an aura that demanded attention without trying. "Ah," she murmured under her breath. "So this is the human ambassador." The human's name was Kieran Vale. Unlike the others in his species she had encountered in her diplomatic career, he carried no arrogance, no pretense of superiority. Where most humans sought to impose, Kieran observed. Where most humans demanded, he asked. He spoke little during the initial ceremonies, his presence alone unsettling the established order of the Cerati Council. Lyra expected nothing from him, but she could not deny the curiosity that grew within her. The first meeting was held in the Hall of Echoing Stars, a vast chamber suspended in anti-gravity fields, its ceilings etched with images of the galaxy in iridescent silver. Lyra studied Kieran across the room, noting how he ignored the ceremonial gestures, how he refused to bow to protocol, how he looked, instead, at the holographic display of Theraxis Orbital Network. "Your planet is magnificent," he said, his voice calm yet resonant. "But your orbital defenses, they're fragile. You rely too heavily on static systems while neglecting mobile contingents." Lyra stiffened. Criticism in the High Council was a delicate art. To speak so directly to a council member, especially a human, was unheard of. "You understand little of Cerati security," she replied coolly, arms crossed. "Yet you speak as though you know more than centuries of our strategy." "I do not claim to know," Kieran said. "I claim only to see. And I see a system that could be exploited. A galaxy-wide threat that is coming whether you prepare or not." Lyra raised an eyebrow, skeptical. Humans were known for dramatics, for fear-mongering that suited their histories of war. "And what threat is that?" she asked, hiding her unease. Kieran's eyes darkened. "The Varen. They are coming. Not in decades. Not in years. Now. And they will not negotiate. They will not show mercy. Only those who act will survive." The council erupted in debate, voices rising, flaring with disbelief. Lyra, however, found herself quietly analyzing his words. She did not trust him yet, but she could not dismiss the urgency in his tone. Over the following days, Lyra accompanied Kieran to the outer cities and orbital stations, observing his methods. He did not command, he demonstrated. He did not lecture, he explained. Slowly, her skepticism began to shift into cautious interest. One evening, as the violet sun sank behind the crystalline mountains, Kieran led her to an ancient ruin on the northern plateau. It was said the ruins housed relics of the first Cerati, artifacts imbued with knowledge long forgotten. "Why are we here?" Lyra asked, more curious than she would admit. Kieran's hand hovered over a central stone tablet. Because the key to survival lies not in your technology alone, but in your history. Every species that survives an existential threat understands this. Lyra frowned. The Cerati prided themselves on their technology, not their relics. And yet, as Kieran traced patterns on the tablet, she noticed symbols that mirrored orbital constellations, patterns that suggested hidden energy conduits, potential defense arrays long dormant. By the third week, the council had grown wary. Rumors spread that Lyra was under the humans' influence, a scandalous thought in a society that distrusted outsiders. Lyra ignored the whispers, focusing instead on Kieran's strategy. "The Varen will not wait for us to prepare," Kieran warned one night as they watched the violet clouds swirl across the horizon. "They will strike at weakness. And you, Lyra, hold the only pieces that can turn their advantage into our defense." Lyra felt a weight settle on her shoulders. Until now, she had expected nothing from this human. Yet here she was, standing on the precipice of war, realizing that Kieran's cause, his vision, could alter the fate of her world. The first strike came in the dead of the Cerati night. A Varen fleet slipped through the edge of the system, cloaked in shadow. Sensors picked them up too late. The orbital stations lit up with warnings, and Lyra felt panic ripple through the ranks. Kieran remained calm. "Move the kinetic shields to Grid 7. Activate the phase distortion field. Trust the conduits." Lyra hesitated. This was untested, ancient technology, buried for centuries. But she obeyed. She had no choice. The alternative was annihilation. The Varen fleet advanced, their weapons cutting through the void. Energy lances shattered the outer defenses, but as Kieran had predicted, the ancient conduits pulsed with power, intercepting the lances and redistributing energy to the orbital grids. The fleet faltered, disoriented. Lyra felt a surge of exhilaration. "This human," she whispered, watching the battle unfold. "He might actually be right." When the final Varen ship fell, shattered against the last shield, Lyra understood something profound. Kieran had not only saved her people, but had also awakened the Cerati to a truth they had ignored. Survival required more than pride and tradition. It required adaptability, courage, and an openness to the unexpected. In the aftermath, the High Council convened. Lyra presented Kieran's plan to strengthen the planet's defenses using both modern technology and ancient knowledge. At first, there was resistance. Old habits die hard. But when Lyra spoke, her voice steady and unwavering, she made it clear. The humans' cause was no longer foreign. It was theirs. Kieran stood beside her, silent but watchful. Lyra realized that she had expected nothing from this human, yet he had changed everything. He had forced them to confront their complacency, to recognize their vulnerabilities, and ultimately, to embrace a future they had not dared to imagine. Weeks later, the reconstruction of the orbital grids was complete. Lyra and Kieran stood atop the observation tower once more, watching the violet sun rise over Thraxis. "You changed everything," Lyra said softly, her eyes on the horizon. Kieran smiled, a quiet, knowing smile. "No, you did. I only showed you the path. You chose to walk it." For the first time in her life, Lyra understood that expectation was a dangerous thing. To expect nothing was to be blind to possibility. To embrace the unexpected was to wield true power. And as the wind of Thraxis stirred the crystalline spires, Lyra knew one undeniable truth. The humans' cause had not only saved her planet, it had reshaped her very understanding of leadership, courage, and hope. The galaxy would remember this day, though the Cerati would never admit it. A human had come with nothing but conviction, and it had changed everything. Lyra Drath smiled, for she had expected nothing, yet found everything she had never dared to imagine.